We've seen a fair number of games running on the Xbox One X now, and impressively, many are already delivering a full native 4K resolution. But Quantum Break is a little different. It's still one of the most demanding games released this generation after all, and hitting those super high resolutions on high-end PCs is not an easy task even now. So it's not really surprising that Quantum Break for Xbox One X is not aiming for native 4K. So what is it doing then? Well, first let's quickly refresh on the Xbox One version. Quantum Break makes use of a temporal reconstruction technique, wherein the game uses information from previous frames to create an end result exceeding the base resolution. And the base resolution then is 720p on a standard Xbox One. Thanks to its reliance on multi-sampling and anti-aliasing, however, the end results are certainly clean enough, but with such a low base resolution, it's also rather blurry. Now, this same technique is also included in the PC version, but eventually it did become possible to disable the reconstruction entirely and utilize higher native resolutions. But this places a huge demand on the PC hardware. So how about Xbox One X? Well, in moving to the new system, the temporal reconstruction technique returns in full force, with an increase to the base resolution. Essentially, we're looking at a 4x boost here with a base pixel count of 2560 by 1440. Yep, 1440p. In the options, however, this is labeled as a 2160p mode, which I suppose is similar in concept to suggesting that the original game was 1080p on Xbox One. It is true at least that the reconstruction technique helps create the illusion that the game is running at a higher resolution, but it still doesn't really look 4K compared to, say, a checkerboard or sparse grid rendering solution. It simply lacks the clarity and sharpness of a 4K image that you get when using those methods. Thankfully, in this case, it does at least play into the visual design, which aims to appear more filmic, that is, emulating the look of a camera rather than super sharp rendered imagery. The best way to see the base resolution is to examine a shot immediately following a camera cut then, like this. Looking closely, you can see the sharp edges that we used for pixel counting here. And if we compare it to Xbox One in the same scene then, the 4x boost to pixel count becomes obvious. Small details are much sharper on Xbox One X. Texture filtering is also greatly improved here, which could actually be a combination of the increased resolution and actual improved anisotropic filtering. Either way, textures are much sharper as a result. Curiously, in this demo version of the game, film grain has been disabled on the Xbox One X while it remains intact on the regular Xbox One. As for the rest of the details, well, we'll have to wait until the final patch to be sure, but thus far it does mostly seem like a resolution and texture filtering boost here. While revisiting the game for this video though, it's clear that Quantum Break still holds up really well, with highly detailed character models, lovely volumetric lighting, a nice implementation of global illumination, and excellent post-processing effects. But the 4K mode here isn't the only option. If you jump into the options menu, there's also a 1080p mode available. And this is an interesting one. When using the reconstruction feature and selecting 1080p on the PC for instance, the base resolution is 720p, like on Xbox One. But here the base resolution is actually 1080p. So the labeling of the two modes as 1080p and 2160p is a little strange here. We don't have a lot of 1080p footage unfortunately, but it does seem like the reconstruction or upscale technique as they call it on the PC is disabled here, so you get a 1080p image with just temporal anti-aliasing. So while it's not as sharp as the 4K/1440p mode, it is at least still an improvement over the original Xbox One with its 720p base resolution. So why would we even need this then? Well, it's pretty simple really. Performance. Again, let's quickly refresh on Xbox One first. Quantum Break does use an adaptive VSync system, but in its original form, slowdown isn't really a problem throughout most of the game. It runs at a very stable 30 FPS, at least for the most part. And looking at the Xbox One X version, however, keep in mind that this is still very much an unfinished patch, and we're hopeful that the developer can find ways to improve the experience by the time the system is launched. I only say that because in its current state, performance isn't quite there using the high resolution mode. It first rears its head during this early cutscene. There's visible tearing along the top portion of the image that detracts from the presentation. tearing that was not present on the standard Xbox One. It's remarkably close to hitting its target, however, which is why we do have some hope that it will be corrected by launch. Unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to test these same sequences using the 1080p mode, but it would at least likely solve the problem. Of course, it's also true that these cutscenes do tend to be quite demanding due to the sheer number of effects in play, the detailed models, and the constant camera cuts. This is clearly one of the high points of the game, visually speaking. Tearing and slowdown aren't exactly the kind of thing you'd want to see while watching the story though, but if it were just limited to the cutscenes, it would be less of an issue overall, right? Well, unfortunately, at least for the moment anyways, that's not really the case. It starts out promising enough. This battle in the lab runs without a problem and gives us hope that it's going to run great, but as we transition to the next scene, we start to see some problematic performance issues again. Just after making your way out of the building, you run across this campus, and the tearing starts to rear its head once again. It seems especially severe when trying to unfreeze this girl, who was simply trying to escape from the Monarch troopers. So how does this same scene fare on the standard Xbox One then? Well, impressively, the entire area runs without a hitch on the older hardware without exhibiting any tearing or slowdown. Moving ahead, this combat scene also shows problems on Xbox One X, which is a little disappointing. The tearing is relatively unobtrusive, thankfully, but we're still hoping that this will all be ironed out for launch. If the game is struggling this much during these early, rather low-key sequences, it does leave us wondering how the rest of the game will fare in this current build. That's not to say the entire battle runs like this, of course. This section here where we're running more towards the building to take out the last few guys is perfectly smooth. Even still, with the average performance we're seeing thus far, you might be a little concerned about this release, but I wouldn't be just yet. As noted earlier, Quantum Break remains a very demanding game on the PC, and a 4x boost to pixel count places huge demands on the system. This is a game that can still bring high-end PC hardware to its knees after all. The performance wobbles are annoying, but it is still rather impressive to see the game operating at a base resolution of 1440p on the Xbox One X, considering how difficult that is to achieve on the PC. But unfortunately, it won't be that useful if these performance issues are not solved by launch. We'll just have to wait to find out. So that's really where we're at right now with Quantum Break. We get a huge boost to the resolution and slightly wobbly performance, with a game that is admittedly still very demanding across multiple platforms. Even if you stick with the 1080p mode, however, the Xbox One X version of Quantum Break does at least offer a nice improvement over the original Xbox One version, at least in terms of image quality. Situations like this tend to be inevitable with a new system launch though. While most Xbox One X games that we've seen are looking fantastic, we can expect that a few enhanced patches or new releases might fall a little short. We saw this exact same thing happen last year with the PS4 Pro launch, where certain games weren't quite up to snuff. But still, I can't stress enough that this is a work in progress build, and it's entirely possible that all of these problems will disappear by launch. I'm certainly crossing my fingers for that one, as I would love to replay it again. It's much less blurry than before, that's for sure. That's all for now though, but I'm sure we'll be back in the future with a look at the final patch version of Quantum Break for Xbox One X. In the meantime, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and follow us over on Twitter. And until next time, this is John, signing off.